I once had a friend whose younger sister died while giving birth. And sometimes I just can't help but think what goes through her mind, or what would go through her mind as she gets older when she asks for her mom and they say your mom died giving birth to you. She's little, she would have no understanding of how the mental health thing works. And then as soon as her mind is able to process these things in a more emotionally intelligent manner, she begins to feel things like guilt, things like a feeling of, would it not have been better if I was never born? Why did I have to bring my mom death? Or we could go to even something more aggressive. The other day I saw a Twitter post where people were making an argument on if abortion should be allowed because someone raped a woman and the woman got pregnant as a result. And someone commented and said, for any features or whatever of someone who was impregnated as a result of rape does not deserve to live. And I paused for a minute and I realized that a product of rape could actually be reading this, and he might be struggling with depression, and he would be like, I don't really deserve to live. I'm the product of something that was so distasteful. And like it or not, these are some people's realities, which is why I'm going to spend the next couple of minutes focused on bringing these people healing and wholeness. Stay tuned with me for the next couple of minutes. Hello, my name is Victor Akan, and I would like to welcome you to yet again another episode of my Breath of Hope podcast. And today, I'll be talking about something really sensitive. I'll be focusing on children or adults, whatever, who were born as a result of not being wanted. So, were born by unwanted circumstances. It could be rape, it could be an unexpected pregnancy, it could be that your mother died while giving birth to you. And it's my prayer and my hope that this episode brings you everything that you need. And I would like to start, this way. Some of us who were not born, from a place of, these circumstances would, I think to an extent that, we are quite privileged, right? Because when we say things like, for instance, now rape, any pregnancy that comes as a result of rape does not deserve to live or something like that, right? I think we just make those careless statements without necessarily considering that there are actually people who are alive today as a result of that, right? And it passes across a different message, okay? But I want to address the challenge that people within, the categories of not being wanted as a result of you being born. I want to address something imminent that they feel. First of all, is the guilt that they caused so much pain. Secondly, is the feeling of the unwantedness that came as a result, or not being wanted by your mom. Or if your mom died, your dad or your relatives could have blamed you. If they didn't blame you could have blamed yourself. And sometimes these people even struggle to accept themselves, not to talk of the rejection that they may face from outsiders, from say the relatives, from say their family members, right? And it's very important because I would be giving you a couple of illustrations as to why. I'm going to prove to you that the fact that you were born as a result of an unwanted circumstance does not mean that you are not without value, you're not without worth. Like the fact that when your father sees you, and for instance, he thinks that your life brought death to his wife who died, does not necessarily mean that you are all there, that death is all there is to you, and I'll be proving to you that you have innate value. I don't matter more than you. You don't matter less than me. We matter, and we matter on the same wavelength. Your identity is as valuable as every other human being on planet Earth. I'm going to give 3 illustrations for people who came from similar circumstances as you. And the first is Nick Vujicic. Well, you might know him, but you don't know him by name. Have you ever seen this guy that doesn't have hands or legs, but he's like a public speaker, he's an evangelist? Well, his name is Nick, and he was born that way. I think there's a condition for it, but he was born that way. This guy grew up feeling depressed before he knew that there was something called depression. He grew up feeling unwanted because before he knew that there was a feeling called being unwanted. He felt like a vegetable. He felt like he couldn't do anything good. He felt like he couldn't amount to anything. Think about it. A person with no hands, no legs, you need your legs to move about. You need your hands to get things done. All he had was a brain and limbs. At age 10, he tried to kill himself. Can you picture what it means to try to kill yourself at age 10? Statistics shows that majority, like 80 to 90% of people who have attempted to kill themselves are well above 18 years old. But for a child to be able to feel depression at age 10, then you'd know that he really suffered. And he tried to drown himself, but he was very unsuccessful at it. And he was angry with himself. He was like, I can't even get this one thing done right. That is, just kill yourself. You can't even get that done right. Like, his depression was that extreme. Now, at age 15, he had an encounter with God, that made him try to take his faith a little bit more seriously. And, of course, he had to go through a series of challenges here and there. But if you Google him right now, he isn't just something that you look at and you pity. He's someone rather that inspires hope, that shows you that you can make a difference even if majority of your body parts are missing. He's someone that shows you that he's someone that gives people with hands and legs no excuse for failure. Think about the fact that when he was born, the disappointment on his father's face, like, what the hell is this? The disappointment on his mother's face, like, what the hell is this? Think about that. Think about disappointment. Think about the sorrows that he brought. But he was able to turn his life around to make something out of it. He was able to give even us that don't have hands or legs, he was able to give us no excuse. A man without hands or legs going further, going across the globe, making the farthest distance in life than even people that have the most use of their bodies. Second example, Eartha Kitt. Now, Eartha Kitt was a black woman. She was actually born in the 1920s. Now, she was born as a result of rape because a white slave owner's son raped her mom, right, and gave birth to her. And when she was born, the father wanted nothing to do with her because, of course, he saw her as an abomination. Back then, you're either pure white or you're pure black. A hybrid seemed like an abomination. Why? Because when you're white, the white people say, you got the inferior black blood in you. When you're black, and the black people would say, you have the blood of the oppressors, you're not one of us. So there was always that thing where she couldn't fit in. So first of all, her dad wanted nothing to do with her because she was really just a product of 5 minutes of forced pleasure. Her mom wanted nothing to do with her because she was a painful reminder of the trauma that she faced. Her grandparents didn't want her around. Literally nobody wanted her around. She had to go live with her external relatives, and she grew up there. She grew up in a loveless environment. But over time, through some series of challenges, she made something out of her life. She came from a poor background, but she was able to change her circumstance in the sense that she got into music and got her big break. Now, if you've heard of this song, if you're a vintage soul and you've heard of this song, Ceci Bond, she's the one that sang it. I think sang it in the 50s or 60s, and that song is still being sung, till date. Now, she released a couple of other hits. She got 2 Emmy Awards. She was able to get, a Grammy Award, although I think that was after her death, like 10 years after her death. Now, what's my point? My point is that irrespective of the fact that the circumstances of her birth brought people trauma, that is, her mother was traumatized from the rape, gave birth to her. Her very existence traumatized the mother even more because her existence was a reminder of something bad, something horrible that was done to her. That's proof that irrespective of where you come from, it doesn't have to define where you get to. Your source does not have to define your destination. Third example, we have Oskar Schindler. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right because I think that's a German name. Now, who is Oskar Schindler? Well, if you've watched the 1993 movie called The Schindler's List, a movie was actually acted, produced in respect to the guy. Now, he was a German that was born, I think, 1911 or 12 or something like that. When he was born, his mom died. So, I just imagine the guilt he must have felt, never knowing his mom. His father might is a key word. His father might have probably, hated him or seen him as, you're the reason why your mother died. But the fact remains that he would have struggled growing up, not knowing his mom, and at the same time knowing that the reason why he cannot know his mom is because of him, right? As time went on, he got into politics. he was also a businessman. When Hitler's craziness started, the whole Holocaust period where Hitler killed about 6 million Jews. He took it upon himself to hide 1,200 Jews in his factory. Now, he hid them in his factory for 3 years. He fed them, right? He fed them, went through all the sacrifices to protect them, risking his own life in the process. After Hitler was defeated, those people, of course, were allowed to go freely. What's the point? The point is that for this guy's case, he might have felt that he was an object of death, not an object, but he was an aura of death. Why? Because he brought his mom death. But not necessarily true. Why? Because he protected 1,200 people from death. Because of him, 1,200 generations lived on. More children were born by mothers who would have died if he didn't house those mothers. Although it seemed as though he brought his mom death, but he allowed future people get their own mothers. Your source does not get to define who you are, your identity, and where you get to. I've given you 3 different illustrations of people who had one bad experience or the other happen to them. And I've given you how the trajectory of their life went completely opposite from the source. Now, what does that mean? That means that regardless of how unwanted the circumstance of your own birth was, you were born out of wedlock, you were unplanned, your father said abort him, your father only gave birth to you because of infidelity, you were born as a result of rape, your life matters, you matter. You as a person, your existence is valid. But the circumstances around which you were born does not get to define the trajectory of your life. Only you get to define it. Only you get to define how you see yourself. And I understand that you might feel like it's your fault or you might get to blame yourself. But the truth is that it will be unfair for you to blame yourself for something you had no choice or no circumstance over. In the book of the Bible, the book of John chapter 9, I think there was a leper. Jesus Christ was passing by. The disciples asked, this person that is like this, who sinned? Is it his fault or is it the fault of his parents? And Jesus Christ said, neither. But this is rather an opportunity for God to showcase his glory. Listen to me, it wasn't your fault that this happened to you. Rather, all I can tell you, I might not have answers for you, like real answers as to why that happens. To be honest, nobody can give you the answers. You might only be able to get those answers when we all get to heaven. But I can tell you this, your story, your source can end up or will end up being an inspiration to other people. Because God has so much great plans for you. God has given you an identity that no one can match or question. God has given you a purpose that you're going to fulfill and would be as though you didn't come from the circumstance you came from. And that's something that I believe, that's something that I know, and that's something I needed to start believing too. And I wrote this episode especially for people like you, because believe it or not, it's something people don't talk about, but you exist, you matter, and you have value. And honestly, I'm here to listen to anyone who has gone through something similar. It doesn't have to be something I called, but something similar. You need someone to talk to. I'm here for you. My Instagram DM is just right here, and you just have to reach me and I'll answer you. I hope that this episode blessed you. I hope that this episode was all that you needed. And if you need more, please reach out to me. Thank you for staying tuned this far. Bye.